I'd love to hear a little bit of how you got started as an artist. You teach at Westmont now.
Correct.
What's your path into sitting in that chair?
Oh, it's been long and circuitous and full of rich things.
Yeah.
I have drawn my entire life.
Okay.
My folks
You were one of those
have-
little kids who...
Yes,
yeah.
my folks have boxes of drawings that I made, and they usually have wild adventure stories of ducks and sea lions. And there are warrior ducks and princess ducks, and they're fighting. And
Right.
so it's fun to look back through those.
Yeah.
And that has just led me on a trajectory of trying to make narratives that feel like they reflect my life and
Yeah.
reflect the things around me. This work is probably from maybe 2008 or so, and I have spent a lot of my life painting in oils and really enjoying that. And this is a piece that I made early graduate school at Cal State Long Beach.
Okay.
And it holds significance because it kind of begins to merge a lot of the different things that I'm interested in art, of the passage of time, of trying to capture the multiplicity of different experiences, of simultaneity of moments, and also the collision of the highly domestic and the kind of anesthetized parts of our life, like the inner hallway of a school building, with slightly more surrealistic and magical moments, like pigeons flying through the space. And so for me, I think it laid the foundation for a lot of the work that I've made since then. And it has offered me a glimpse to say, what happens if we suspend time, if we build a mini schism through it? If you'll notice on this image, it's split slightly and there are different reflections happening at different times. And then the potential for the otherworldly to enter. Around that time, I began to make the paintings so dense, they were getting so complex that I decided to pull them apart.
Okay.
So the next image maybe offers a stepping stone from there, where I began to take similar types of interior spaces and narrative experiences and pull them out and
Literally
put them on
pull them
different
apart,
pieces.
yeah, right.
There is a sense in my art of, I like to imagine that I take an object or an idea and throw it up in the air.
Right.
And then if I could freeze it there and walk around it and contemplate, what are the emotional resonances? What are the histories and the stories? I want a level of kind of humor and maybe pathos at the same time.
Yeah,
Of,
right.
you know, a ream of typing paper just got exploded. This is titled Pantone Disruption.
Disruption.
And you'll notice there's a series of water glasses with various stages of kind of disruption happening in them. Behind them is a drawing of a sperm whale, and then behind that is a series of kind of blue bands, and it's based off of the Pantone color of the year. I think this was in 2000. It's like a kind of a teal color.
Okay.
And basically, I'm often interested in these mundane, decorative, and
Right, because Pantone, I think of for industrial use or decorative use,
Yeah.
not high art. Yeah.
Indeed, and also the simplicity of a water glass. So this kind of sandwiched between this is this highly archetypal kind of charged image of a sperm whale. This piece is entitled This Is How It Is, and it's loosely a self-portrait of trying to balance the many different dynamics at play. And this is a curious piece because each, I'll call them character, although they're not specific characters, but each element in this has been representative of different parts of my work. All growing up, I would always see faces in patterns, you know, upholstery patterns and wallpaper patterns, and this damask pattern has been fascinating to me for some time. And if you look closely, there are potentially faces of owls that are emerging out of it. And I did these on large scrolls. They're 40-foot scrolls.
Yeah.
And then this installation was hung in Riverside in the Culver Museum. And so here's the full installation of it. The ones previously show some details. But I am just really fascinated in how do we take something that's simple and everyday and infuse it, inject it with something potentially more. When I'm invited to do an exhibition in a place, or I know I'm going to, I try and think about what stories are already present in that space, and then what narratives I might bring to the work as well.
And what stories were present in that space?
This kind of column, at the top of the columns had these wonderful beige curvilinear forms that I just thought were really wonderful, and they felt like they echoed some of the more elaborate damask wallpaper patterns that I'd seen. It was also an interesting space to transition through you'll notice that you can walk kind of around and through them. I often hear stories or pull specific experiences from life or from poets or people that articulate things more beautifully than I can, and then I'm stuck with those images. And this image is called Torque. It's a series of deer. Okay. This is based off of an experience growing up in Colorado and my mom hitting a deer in a snowstorm. Oh, okay. And kind of watching with horror this huge animal twist through the air. Oh my gosh. And so to make this, I actually looked on YouTube for videos of animals being hit by cars. Oh my gosh. And paused them to try and find the right type of torque. Yeah. It also, I'm interested in making something that maybe pulls from a horrific moment, but also looking at the potentially other ways that it can be interpreted. I want to connect to the undercurrent of the trauma of some stories. Yeah, and then also look at how distancing oneself from that. Okay. Sometimes that's a way of removing oneself from an experience, is to try and build that in. This is called Fluorescent Divine, to Bernini's Saint Teresa in Ecstasy in Rome, where Saint Teresa is kind of writhing around in passion and looking at a light source above her. I have been interested in, like the airplane might carry people, or like animals might represent subconscious archetypes. The boat for me has offered a possibility for individuals to put themselves in it and imagine a life experience. And I'm also very interested in boats that they are suspended in the kind of material of air and water, which is so different from our ground. I mean, I guess it's not that different, but, and so traversing above and below. There's a welded chain that connects this to the wall, so it's self-supporting, and then the ladder kind of goes back and forth between them. These are a series of handmade wooden boats that are going down a long river of water glasses and wine glasses filled with partial water. Right. In recent years, I have been really enthralled with the oaks, the California oaks around Santa Barbara and San Ynez, and so I've begun to paint those. I also have started to look at my practice as having so much white space behind them, this kind of open white space, and I was trying to imbue them with a deeper volume, and night is obviously the opposite of that. There's a ghost-like image of a boat here. There's also a collision. You can see the oak returning into a domestic space. This was during our season of drought, so there were kind of hopes and wishes for water, which this work now is very different in context after we had the tragic debris flow. That's not made about that, but it was made before it, but it has a different lens now. So I'm interested in the natural components that we see in nature and how they give light to our experience. This piece I'm really honored was recently acquired by the Santa Barbara Museum of Art. And you can see it starts to blend together, the boat carrying these falling sycamore leaves and an oak tree in deep rocks. This work was up at a recent exhibition at Sullivan Goss. It's entitled Lumens, and the kind of fantastical nature of illuminating a boat from underneath and above. And in this exhibition, there were a series of other things illuminated by that night sky. This is a gorgeous new Myrtillo crest cactus that I got for my garden and had to paint it first. And then a final image of the exhibition installation.
What would you say to people who want to become artists?
The first thing I'd say is don't be afraid to make, because that's the only way to go through the bad ones. There's an artist that I heard in describing his experience painting in France, and he said, I can still see my first 200 plein air paintings that were flying like frisbees across the French landscape. I love that it just takes 200, that or more. So making and being ready and free to do that. And the second one is something that my colleague, Dr. Lisa DeBoer, says at Westmont, where she asks people, what's your core life question? And that's a big statement, but what questions keep coming up for you in your life that you keep resonating and ruminating on? And drawing from those as inspiration. Well,
that is such an eloquent way to finish our interview. Thank you so very much for talking with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.